So, first bill we have up is Representative Herr. There is no fiscal note. Representative Herr,
Nope.
go ahead and take the testifier's table. Marriages by minors, provisions eliminated and proof of age required. Representative Herr, would you like to move your bill to get it before the committee?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Lesh and members. I'd like to move the House File 745 to be placed in the General Registry.
That is the motion. We have the bill before us. Representative Herr, welcome to the committee. And tell us about your bill.
Thank you. So I'm here today to speak on House File 745, and this is to eliminate child marriages. Around the world, there are more than 700 million women lost their childhoods when they were married as children. For most of them, their marriage meant years of abuse, poverty, illness, and poverty for their children. Child marriages happen everywhere, even in the United States, even in Minnesota. Between 2000 and 2010, 248,000 children were married in the U.S. About 90% of these child marriages are girls being married to old men, men old enough that the sexual relationship would constitute statutory rape. These marriages happen in all groups, immigrant and refugee communities, in all religions, among people whose families have lived in this country for generations, and for people who are new arrivals. Child marriages were acceptable centuries ago, or even maybe a generation ago. Today we know that girls have to stay in school. Today we know that when young girls have babies, rates of infant mortality and maternal mortality are high. Today we know that there are simply no good outcomes. We're here to advocate for House File 475, a bill to ban all marriage in Minnesota to anyone under the age of 18. We'll hear from Dr. Ellen Kennedy, Executive Director of World Without Genocide and an adjunct professor at William Mitchell. She will talk about the bill and its content. Then we'll hear from a few other testifiers today, and I can call them up as we get to them. So if, Chair, with your permission, I could call up Dr. Ellen Kennedy to come make a
call them up. Thank you, Representative Herr. Welcome to the committee, Dr. Kennedy, and please introduce yourself for the record.
Thank you. My name is Ellen Kennedy. Thank you, Chair Lesh and committee members, for the opportunity to speak with you this morning. A few years ago, I read an article about child marriage. The reporter related the story of an 11-year-old girl in Florida who had gotten married with judicial permission, according to the law in that state, and she married her 20-year-old rapist. The article described the girl's subsequent years of abuse and poverty in that marriage. I thought it was a horrific story, but as I read, I thought, child marriage, that's really a problem in Bangladesh or Tanzania, not in the United States. And then I came across the following sentence. Children 16 and under are still being married in Florida at a rate of one every few days. Again, I thought, well, that's only a problem in Florida. But I kept reading. The numbers in the U.S., as Representative Herr said, 248,000 children were married between the year 2000 and 2010. Child marriages were absolutely legal in every state in this country. Child marriage is legal in Minnesota. In Minnesota, a child can get married at age 16 or 17 with parental or judicial permission, just like in Florida. And estimates are that at least 250 children under 18 are married in Minnesota each year. A family or a judge make this happen legally. That's the procedure in Minnesota. But as Representative Herr said, there is no positive outcome. Children who marry are 3 times more likely to be beaten by their spouses, 31% more likely to live in poverty, 50% more likely to drop out of school, out of high school, 23% more likely to have a heart attack, diabetes, cancer, or a stroke, and 50% more likely to be divorced than those who marry at age 18 or older. A report from the Georgetown Center for Education and the Workforce notes that 70% of the jobs in Minnesota now require post-secondary education. So what happens to a child in Minnesota who leaves school to get married? Our laws limit children from practices that they're not mature enough to handle, yet we let them marry when they may not yet even have a driver's license. And this is marriage, something that could have an impact for the rest of one's entire life. 2 years ago, a 17-year-old high school senior named Cassie Levesque learned that child marriage was happening in her state, like everywhere. She was a Girl Scout and decided to work on ending child marriage in New Hampshire as a Girl Scout project. She got a bill to the New Hampshire legislature. It didn't pass then, but 3 months ago, in the November election, Cassie Levesque got elected to the New Hampshire House of Representatives at age 18. We will soon hear from a 17-year-old. So perhaps we can get this passed now, and she may not have to work on it when she gets elected in another couple of years. Cassie Levesque is determined to raise the minimum marriage age to age 18 in her state, no exceptions. Both her grandmother and her great-grandmother were child brides. Cassie understands. The universal definition of child internationally is anyone under 18. Countries around the world, from Sweden to Pakistan, have recently passed laws saying no to child marriage because the research and the outcomes that I referred to are clear. And these outcomes are abuse, poverty, divorce, illness. This isn't what we want for anyone, and we certainly don't want this for children in Minnesota. We urge you to limit marriage in Minnesota to adults, please, and thank you.
Thank you for your testimony, Dr. Kennedy. Questions from members of the committee for Dr. Kennedy? Thank you very much. Dr. Kennedy, please stick around if we have questions afterwards. Please call your next testifier, Representative Hurd.
Next testifier is Ashlynn Kendzior, a lawyer with Gender Justice.
Welcome, Ms. Kendzior. Please introduce yourself for the committee and begin your testimony.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Thank you for allowing me to speak with you this morning. My name is Ashlynn Kendzior, and I am here to testify in support of House File 745. As was stated, I am an attorney with Gender Justice, a local nonprofit that focuses on gender equity, and I am here today in my individual capacity to support this legislation. And today I want to explain the legal situation for children who marry and what recourse they have if they are in an abusive relationship. As was previously stated, the minimum age to marry in Minnesota is 18, but there are exceptions that allow a child of 16 or 17 years of age to get married with their parents, legal guardians, or the court's decisions. So a child's parents or legal guardian must first appeal to the court in order for that child to get married. The judge then decides whether to grant that license. There is no special formula, and the judges are granted great discretion in these cases. Judges usually grant the license because parental rights are highly regarded in this country, and the judges trust the parent's decision to marry off that underage child, regardless of what the child thinks and regardless of whether marriage is actually in the best interests of that child. One reason child marriage is harmful is because whether someone is married has an impact on sexual misconduct laws in this state. Minnesota has what are commonly known as marital rape exceptions. This means that conduct that would otherwise be considered rape or other sexual misconduct is perfectly legal in this state if the victim and the perpetrator are married. For example, under Minnesota law, it is illegal to have sex with a 16 or 17-year-old child if you are more than 4 years older than that child and in a position of authority. However, that very same conduct is legal if the victim and the perpetrator are married. Even if the rape or other misconduct occurred prior to the marriage, most prosecutors will decline to prosecute because the marriage is seen as taking precedence and they don't want to disturb the family unit. Please consider that victim survivor in that situation. She has already survived a sexual assault, but once she is married to her abuser, there are almost no consequences. Imagine knowing at 16 or 17 years old that the legal system has written off your assault and has given your perpetrator absolute immunity for their actions. Finally, I want to discuss the legal recourse for a child who is married. Children, because they are under the age of 18, cannot legally sign contracts, rent apartments, or individually hold credit cards. They cannot rent or purchase cars alone, and they cannot access health care or check themselves into a hospital. Abuse, as we have heard, is pervasive in these relationships. But a married child cannot file for divorce or even seek an order for protection on their own because that would require them to sign a legal document, which they cannot do because they are under the age of 18. Many battered women's shelters will not accept abused persons who are under the age of 18, and I want to stress that point. If you are in an abusive marriage and you are a child, you may not be able to stay at a battered women's shelter. In addition, you may not be able to turn to your parents for support because they're the ones who signed your marriage license in the first place. A child bride or groom who is the victim of abuse often has nowhere to go and therefore remains in that abusive relationship, oftentimes with children involved. Child marriage is legal in Minnesota, but it absolutely should not be. I urge you to support House File 745 and ban child marriage in our state. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kendzior. Any questions from the members of the committee for Ms. Kendzior? Chair Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just out of curiosity, since if they're a child that's married under the age of 18, if they're being abused, would they be eligible under CHIP statute, Children in Need of Protection?
I am not certain
Ms.
what
Kendzior?
I apologize. I'm not certain what the implications are for CHIP.
Yeah, I'm
Scott.
curious. I don't know if anybody else around the table knows, but just curious.
Does anyone else around the table know? Or smart research people, they'll look it up. I'm not putting you on the spot, unless you know, Ms. Mullen. Why don't you think about it? We'll get back to you. Okay. Ms. Kendzior, I got a question. So there's an 18-year-old kid in Thief River Falls who manages the local Dairy Queen, okay? And he gets married to his 17-year-old girlfriend and gets her a job at the local Dairy Queen also. He's now in a position of authority. Prior to marriage, that would be statutory rape. But in marriage, that sexual act is protected because of what you refer to as the marital rape exception. Is that correct? Is it your testimony that you really do think that individual should be prosecuted for a third-degree criminal sexual conduct or fourth degree in that situation?
Mr. Chair, the law says that you have to be 4 years or older than that person and in a position of authority. So an 18-year-old who marries a 17-year-old would not qualify under that statute.
Okay, so a 21-year-old, that, in your opinion, that should be prosecuted?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Any other questions from members of the committee? Okay, thank you for your testimony, Ms. Kendzior.
Thank you.
Oh,
Mr. Chair, we have
sorry, Mr. Johnson.
Mr. Chair, members, I can shed a little bit of light on the order for protection question and the CHIPS question simply by indicating that under Section 518B01, Subdivision 4, a person that is a minor who is 16 years or older may make a petition for an order of protection under the Domestic Abuse No Contact Order statute.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Representative Herr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have two more testifiers. The next person is Fortune Welly, and she is she is the executive director of a Somali women's advocacy organization.
Thank you. Welcome to the committee, Ms. Welly. Introduce yourself for the record and begin your testimony.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and member of committee. This issue is so complex. My name is Fortune Welly. I'm Somali American. I have over 20 years public health and healthcare experience, and also lead an ethnic-led nonprofit organization called Isrun that primarily works with Somali women and their families. When I was asked to testify for this bill, I wasn't sure what to say because I thought this was a third world and developing world issue. But I'm here to talk about the health impact of child marriage. There are 3 reasons why young girls are married. Number 1, as everyone talked about, poverty. Families are marrying off their daughters because they cannot afford to keep them at home. And because of economic reasons, they're married off. The second thing is that girls are married is because they're invested, they're seen as an economic outcome. And so the dowries that are given, families are thinking they're making off of resources. And the third reason that young girls are married off is to keep them the good girls before they start premarital sex. They're married off, and so to protect rape, unintended pregnancies, sexual transmitted disease, and all that. But we know that based on research globally, WHO and everyone else shows that the violence that child marriage brings to the health impacts have been researched. Social isolation and depression is number one, that girls who are married off as a young age, they have to follow the rules that the person who had married. So they're rejected, they're social isolated, tend to person who married older, and they're totally in depression and are not so healthy. And also that shunts their development as well. The other problem is that people think getting married a young girl, that they're protecting STD and STI and sexual transmitted disease. Based on the research, it says otherwise. Child marriage, especially girls who are married older men, tend to have higher HIV and HPV, which is sexual transmitted disease, because the men who marry tend to have multiple sexual partners. Also, according to the WHO, the risk of having a child having a baby is very high. According to the World Organization, girls between age 10 and 14 years old are 5 to 7 times more likely to die on childbirth. Also, the girls between the age of 15 and 19 years old are also twice likely to die in childbirth. Also, the risk is not only the young mom who's having baby, the risk for the infant. The infant mortality is also about 80% of these young girls that are having. Higher for emotional immaturity, lack of access and reproductive health services, and high risk of infectious disease. In conclusion, the reasons girls are married are poverty, income, and also other problems. What I'm hoping to say here is that when young girls get married, we're not only losing their lives, their productivity, but also they're having babies. We're losing their livelihood. The work we do here, we see telltale signs of young girls have been married when they were young in refugee camps. And one day they just discover they're 25-year-olds and they have 7 kids. They're unable to read, they're unable to write, and all of a sudden they're panicking and they want to get out. I hope that we as Americans, we as Minnesotans wanted to be the voices of all young girls around the world. And I want us to stop this early marriage for young girls so then we can go out and protect the young girls that are waiting us to be saved. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your testimony, Ms. Welly. Any questions from members of the committee for Ms. Welly? Thank you, Ms. Welly. Please stick around in case we have questions thereafter. Representative Herr, you have a final testifier?
Yes, our final speaker is Chloe, and she's a high school student, and she's one of the many children advocating for an end to child marriage.
Thank you. Welcome to the committee, Ms. Morse, and please introduce yourself.
Good morning.
I'm sorry, what's your name? It was,
What?
tell me your name again.
Chloe Morse.
It was Ms. Morse. Okay,
Right.
great.
Good morning, Chair Lesh and members of the committee. My name is Chloe Morse. Thank you for the opportunity to share my thoughts on this legislation with you today. I'm a constituent of Representative Herr, and I would like to thank her for sponsoring this important bill. I was shocked when I first heard about the prevalence of child marriage in the United States and right here in our own state of Minnesota. I had always assumed that child marriage happened some other place in countries on the other side of the globe, where the issue is disconnected from my personal reality and where I could do little to combat it. This seems to be most people's reaction. I am 17 years old and a senior in high school. When I look around me at my peers, I see we are all at a pivotal point in our lives. We are defining our identities, making decisions about our future, and preparing to enter a new stage in our lives as we enter adulthood. People my age are learning how to be independent, but a child marriage impedes development of this independence. This is because the reality is that in the majority of child marriages, the power dynamics are lopsided due to differing ages. When we're talking about child marriage, we're really talking about child brides, younger girls being married to older men. Child brides are dependent on their husbands. This makes it difficult for them to leave or escape if there is abuse, and research has documented that there is almost always abuse. In addition, minors don't have any legal recourse. When I learned about the presence of child marriage in Minnesota and its devastating effects on the lives of girls, I knew I had to act. First, I arranged for a trip of high school students to visit Senator Sandy Pappas last year to talk with her about this bill, its importance, and how we could take action. Since then, I have been on a live radio show and TV show speaking on child marriage and why advocacy around this issue is important to me. I am also working with World Without Genocide to present a program on child marriage this Saturday, February 16th at Highland Park Public Library, free and open to the public, to educate the general public about this issue and this bill. Child marriage is an issue anywhere in the world, but here in Minnesota, we can do something about it. Please vote to approve House File 745. We can make child marriage illegal here, with no exceptions.
Thank you very much for your testimony, Ms. Morse. Any questions from members of the committee? Ms. Morse, thank you very much, Ms. Morse. Please stick around in case we have questions for you hereafter. Representative Considine.
Not for Ms. Morse.
Okay.
I thought we were getting on to the next.
Well, we're going to ask for any public testimony from folks in the audience, but before we do that, we're going to ask if anyone has any questions for Representative Herr. Representative Robbins.
Thank you, Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Representative Herr, thank you very much for bringing this bill forward. As the mom of 3 girls, I can't imagine them having to go through this, so I'm grateful. But I do have a couple questions.
Sure.
First of all, do you know how many child marriages there are in Minnesota, and then what the ages of both people are? And then secondly, since we heard the bill on marital rape last time, and we seem to be dealing with that, how does that change, if anything, your concerns on this issue? Thank you.
Representative Herr.
Thank you, Chair Lesh, Representative Robbins. So we don't have a lot of good data. We know that some of our surrounding states, we've actually pulled a lot of the information from them. But maybe what I can do is defer to our House research. I think we had materials that showed some numbers around this.
Anyone in House research want to venture in? Ms. Mullen.
Chair and members, on the chart that was passed out, it doesn't appear that there are statistics for Minnesota that I could see. That might have something to do with, they don't keep track. They probably, you'd probably have to go to each registrar's office for those marriages.
Ms. Kendzior, I bet you has an answer. You got an answer, Ms. Kendzior?
Yes, Minnesota is one of 12 states in this country that does not retain or report any data on child marriages. So you would have to, as you stated, individually call all of the counties and have them collect that data.
So this committee would have to create a data set and go through that. That's what we do here. Thank you for that answer. Any Representative Oh, you had a second question, Representative Robbins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative, I just wondered, since we've already looked at the marital rape issue in the committee and are dealing with that, does that change anything? Or obviously there's still a lot of other concerns. Just wanted your feedback on that. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Chair Lesh and Representative. So it does, for me, this is a personal question. So for me, it doesn't change anything because all of the health outcomes, the impact on the well-being of the mother and her children, on just on opportunities for that young woman doesn't change because we changed that marital rape law. So it would still be important for us to move forward with this bill.
Thank you. Representative Considine.
Thank you, Chair Lesh. And before I ask any question, I'd like to point out that I am a co-author on the bill.
Duly noted.
This is set to take effect August 1st, 2019. If you have people that go in July and get married, are they grandfathered in, or the ones that are currently there, are they grandfathered in, or are they considered null and void? And I do have one more question. Well, I'll ask at the same time, which is, you have somebody that comes in from Kentucky or Kansas that is legally married and they're 21 and 16. What do we do?
Full faith and credit clause. Okay. Representative Herr, do you want to phone a friend on that? I mean, it's kind of, unless you can answer it, go ahead.
Chair Lesh, Representative. So we do have some information around that, and House research could maybe help correct this if what I'm saying is incorrect. But that the effective date is the effective date. So if you're married before that, it doesn't impact your legal marriage. The only time that this does impact is that if you're from another state as well and your marriage was recognized there, if you come to Minnesota, it's recognized here. The only time that it wouldn't be is if somehow after that date you lied about that your age and that you were legal to, that you were 18, and then later on if you wanted to get benefits. Then that would be void, and that particular marriage would be void.
Chair Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'm wondering about the enforcement of this and how that's going to happen. Because I know there may be different cultures or religions that maybe they don't go to the courthouse and get the proper documentation, but they still call it marriage. And so how do you enforce those marriages, and how do you rescue those girls from that plight?
Representative Herr.
Chair Lash, Representative, so we thought actually quite a long time about that particular question. Right now, that if you are, let's say in the Hmong culture, if you're Hmong married but you don't have a marriage certificate, in those marriages, the spouse is not entitled to benefits. It's not entitled to any of that would come along with. So being culturally married doesn't give you all the rights of being legally married. And so this bill, in essence, wouldn't change that. The thing that we, to your second part of your question about how do we enforce it in those particular situations, I don't think that there would be any way for us to enforce it because we can't enforce it now. If a 14-year-old is married to a 15-year-old, which does happen, we can't enforce that right now either. So, and there's no way to know about that.
Representative Hassan.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Representative Herr, for bringing this bill. It's, I know many people, when they hear child marriage, they think it's, third world country problem. But I know that many immigrant communities and even mainstream communities, this is in existence and it's a problem. Just the one question that I had, Representative Scott already asked, for communities that don't go through the legal system to get married and don't have a marriage certificate, how would we be able to help those girls? How can we get them out of those marriages if we were able to reinforce this bill and make it a statute? Like, is there an amendment we can add, or is for cultural marriages, or? I'm just curious because I know that happens a lot in immigrant communities. In my community, it happens that people get married through the Islamic way, but don't necessarily seek to get marriage license from the court system. So,
Representative Herr.
Chair Lash, Representative Hassan. So I think that this law doesn't, again, impact that the way we do outreach now, we know that those marriages are already happening at this point, and that organizations like those that are run by Fortune, I mean, we need to continue to support those organizations to be able to identify these women and support them and help them out of these types of marriages. But again, this particular bill doesn't address that, and I wish that there were a way. I think that a couple of years ago, there was an effort to identify cultural marriages and what that meant and to codify that in law, but it did not pass. And so that is actually a much more complicated situation than this bill would be able to address or encompass. And so I think that those are things we need to continue to think about if we're looking to protect all girls, how we're actually going to do that in law without, in honoring cultures, but also knowing that there is a time and place where now young child marriages are no longer needed or accepted. And so that's another discussion for, a bigger discussion for another day.
Thank you, Representative Herr. Chair Johnson.
Chair Lash, a couple of my questions have been answered. One I was going to ask about the data here, what's issued in Minnesota, because I kept talking about Florida and other states. But since we don't keep the data, and I don't think we should get that data, and like I know your position on the government collecting data and how to secure it, it's a big issue. But my concern is, how do we protect our children when they can, the parents, if they want to do this, like in Florida, was it 12 years old, a child getting married? The parents bringing the kids down to a different state. You having them get married, then we have that full faith and credit clause that we have to deal with at this end when they come back to Minnesota. Like my brother, he ended up going to Florida, filed for a license down there, and got married an hour later. Is there something that you could possibly, and I don't know if research could help you put this, try to deal with that, where if it's a child marriage, an amendment of some type, that marriage would not be recognized in the state of Minnesota if they were under 18, the age of 18 when they were married?
Representative Herr.
Chair Lush, Representative Johnson. So actually, under this particular bill, if you are a Minnesotan and you went to another state to get married, your marriage would actually be void here. It would not be enforceable here.
Okay, thank you. Other questions for the author before we move to public testimony? If you do have, there are other members of the public who wish to testify, please come forward and make your statements on the record. While you do, I don't have a question, but I would state, Representative Herr, I have a modicum of reservation, only to this extent. My grandmother and grandfather were 17 and 18 when they got married. He was going off to the war, World War I, in fact. That's why I'm here in this much time. Most people say, oh, you assume Second World War. No, it was actually World War I. He went off to the Navy. That was probably a dumb decision. When I was a commander in the Army, I had all kinds of privates make stupid decisions, like getting married before they get deployed and everything. It was almost always a bad decision. That said, I'm glad I'm here. So it was a different time. I get it. And times have changed. I like to try to attempt to create uniform standards to the extent we can, despite the fact that times change. Now, my mom, when she got married, was 28. My dad was 35. By 1978, she said that people were already calling her an old maid because she was 28 when she was going to get married. And yet, her three boys, including me, got married way too young. I got married at 22. My other brother got married at 22, and my younger brother got married at 23. That was a stupid decision, too. I was way too young and stupid to get married at 22. So mind that, all you with the red name tags up there, 22 is too young and stupid to get married, okay? All right? That said, I'm really glad that I have my daughter, and I appreciated my marriage with my ex-wife, too. She's a good person. I don't regret that time. But if someone told me that I didn't have the legal right to do that at that age, even though I was too young and stupid, I would probably take some umbrage at that. Do you have any reservation that in asserting that, nope, we're going to make it 18, that we are removing moral agency from young women and their ability to make a decision, especially when it comes to, say, the question of choice? Okay, very sensitive topic around here. Very much argued about when a person has a moral agency to make a legal decision like that. Do you have any concerns that by drawing this line of demarcation at 18, that we are removing agency from young women in their ability to make decisions for themselves and their own body at all? And if not, why?
Chair Lush, thank you for the question. It was kind of a long question, so I hope I remember it correctly to answer. So I think that, so right now, we already take a lot of agency away from people who are not considered adults, right? You can't drink until you're 21. You can't smoke until you're 18. We're looking to raise that in different cities, to raise that age to 21 as well. We've already told young people that your brain is not fully developed till your mid-20s. And so we have already decided we would regulate their agency already. And so I do not have a problem with this particular, raising marriage age to 18. I have a 19-year-old daughter who, when she was 16, was dating a 19-year-old boy. Very briefly, and I took her hand and brought her to the police station, and I told an officer to tell her why that was wrong, that it's not because her mother is telling her that it's wrong, it's because the law tells her it's wrong. And when I said it to her, she did not listen. But when the police officer said it to her, she broke it off with that boyfriend. And the officer asked her, he said, what do you think of if you saw another man dating, he said, and he's a man, he's 19, he's going to be 20, you're a child. What do you think if you saw that in somebody else? What would you think of that man? And she said, well, I would think he didn't have very good judgment and he wasn't thinking about the girl. And then he said, then think about the same thing for you. And today she's going to college on the East Coast. She's a Dean's List student. She's going to be traveling. Last year she traveled to Spain to study. She's going to Laos to study, to Thailand to study anthropology this summer. Had my child fought me the way that she did and married this boy, she would not have the life that she has right now. So I have no problem in saying, letting the law decide that 18 is the age you can get married at, because my 16-year-old had no wherewithal to be able to make that decision for herself.
Thank you for that answer, Representative Liebling.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I have a question and then a comment. So my question is about the full faith and credit issue, and maybe it's more to staff. Whether there's any limit to the requirement that we recognize marriages from other states. You know, are we under the full faith and credit clause? If somebody's married at 11, are we required to recognize that marriage when they come into Minnesota? There must be some limit. So that would be my first question.
Who's taking over that? Ms. Mullen?
Chair and members, I'm happy to look into that offline and send you an email about it. I'd have to do some research. The age with marriages has slowly been changing over the last few years in different states, and I don't know if there is a lot of law in that area as to how other states have interpreted recognizing other marriages, but I can look for that and send it to you.
Okay. Mr. Chair, thank you. And so I think that would be good. I'm a little bit troubled by the perhaps unequal treatment here based on, you know, where somebody got married or, you know, residency and all of that. The other thing I just wanted to kind of comment, Mr. Chair, on what you said about the 17 and 18-year-old grandparents and stuff. And you did say that the world has changed. And I think that's a big key here. I mean, there are a lot of standards that we used to accept that we don't accept anymore. And I think part of this is that the role of women and the expectations that women have and the, thank goodness, the way women are viewed is changing a lot. And women expect to be able to be full human beings and be autonomous and have educations and be able to manage their own finances. I mean, there was one time when women couldn't own property. And women couldn't even consent to marriage. It was the family that consented, and so on and so on. And we don't accept those things anymore. And I take your point that a lot of this is who we imagine the people are and what we imagine their thinking process is. And unfortunately, we in the legislature have to make laws for everybody that cover everybody the same. And we can't say, you know, here's a situation where the woman is fully advised and really does want to be married and she's really mature and that one's okay, but this other one's not, even though they're the same age. We just don't have the ability to do that. And I would say, too, that, you know, kind of as birth control has come into the picture, sexual mores have changed, you know, for good or for ill. Just the sort of our expectations of people and what the meaning is of getting marriage has changed. And I think, I have to say, I do have some kind of little bit of concern about how the bill plays out, and the author knows about that. But in terms of the agency question and saying no one should marry before the age of 18, I don't have a concern about that. I think it's entirely appropriate in today's world. You know, and of course it's equal. It's not a gender-based thing. It also will apply to men. But mainly it's the women who have been hurt by early marriage, maybe before they understand fully what their opportunities will be, as Representative Herr has mentioned. And I just think back to myself at 16, and I thought I knew everything. But in fact, I didn't. So I think it's a good bill. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Now.
I do now.
Thank you, Chair Liebling. Representative Lucero.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I got you beat by a couple of years. I was married at 19, and my then wife of over 21 years now was 18 years old. But I wanted to add on to the research question in terms of, in addition to states, how about international? I don't know if that's been addressed, but would international marriages, would we recognize those? For example, I know we recognize international birth certificates, but would that be included in this?
Representative Herr, you want to take a shot at it, or Ms. Mullen? Go ahead, Ms. Mullen.
Chair and members, the way the bill is written right now, it's another state or foreign jurisdiction. So right now, if we do recognize foreign marriages, and this bill would say that if they were married under 18 and one of them was a resident of the state at the time, So if they went to, I don't know, yeah, any foreign country and were married, the bill would apply to the foreign jurisdiction marriage the same way it applies to other states.
Representative Lucero?
Thank you. One quick follow-up then. What if they were both, so under what you just mentioned, it would be, one would have to be a Minnesota resident, married internationally to somebody under 18. What if they were both foreign, so neither one was a Minnesota resident and then came to Minnesota?
Chair and members, the way this bill is written, that marriage would still be recognized.
Thank you. Any other questions for members of the committee? Seeing none, we are prepared to vote. Well, we're prepared to vote, Dr. Kennedy, unless it was really urgent and pressing to clarify and incorrect. Okay. Closing comments, Representative Herr.
And I just wanted to take a moment to say a couple of words in closing. I want to share a quick story with all of you, that when I was a minor, I was at a community event where an older man saw me for just a brief moment. And that man's family called my father a few days later asking for my hand in marriage. I remember hearing my father say to the caller that he would only entertain the thought of us marrying after I graduated from college. Had my father not been my advocate, my life outcome would have been very different. I would have never graduated high school. I would have never gone away to a college that was hours from my home, which for my time, you couldn't leave your house unless you were getting married, and I went to college away from home. I would have never met my husband at school. I would have never lived all over the country to advance my career. Most importantly, I would not be here today, sitting here as a state legislator, introducing a bill to eliminate a practice that takes opportunities that I had from other girls who didn't have an adult to advocate for them the way my father did. So yes, there may be some unintended consequences that impact a few people. But we cannot let a practice that reduces a girl's chance of success, happiness, security, safety continue, and not just for girls, but for boys as well, that this is about both gender. We are the adults who know better, so we should do better to protect our children. Thank you, Chair Lush, and members for hearing House File 745 to eliminate the provision of allowing marriages by minors.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Representative Herr's motion is that House File 745 be placed on the general register. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed say no. Motion passes unanimously. House File 745 is placed on the general register. Thank you for the testimony. Thank you all the testifiers. I very much appreciate you being here today.